This is very interesting. More tech stuff. Uniswap and Sudoswap integration. Can you speak to this a little bit more?
So Sudoswap, we talked about them. We talked about them. I think like on our last recap or 2 recaps ago.
A couple weeks ago.
I believe it was under the guise of we're never going to talk about this again. So I guess we should cover it this week that it launched. So Sudoswap is like effectively like they're trying to create a Uniswap style like automated market maker for NFTs, where like there's a pool of NFTs, there's like a minimum like there's like a floor price, right? Like for the like digital pool. Or for the on-chain pool, and then there's like a really fat spread, and so the pool will accept NFTs for like some predetermined price, and they will sell NFTs for some predetermined price, and it's just based on like the balance of like what's available in the pool, like how much wrapped ETH and how many NFTs of a given collection there are. And then there's also like parameters that you can set when you create this pool, like what should the spread size be, blah blah blah. And like what kind of like liquidity curve do you use? Do you use like XY equals K kind of thing, where like the last one in the pool is exponentially more expensive than the first one, or is it like linear or blah blah blah? I think it's kind of like a noble concept because it really aims to like put NFT liquidity directly on chain. And Uniswap is like making a big push in NFTs, right? Like they acquired Genie, like the NFT aggregator. Uniswap Labs acquired Genie, or Uniswap Foundation.
Labs, I think.
And it just makes a lot of sense that like they would partner with someone who already built out like the fundamental like primitives for this.
Yeah, because Sudoswap right now has basically no liquidity. Like, there's nothing really going on there.
And, like, for good reason, right? Because the spreads are ginormous, right? A, the spreads are ginormous,
it's
but B,
crazy,
the spreads have to be ginormous because they need to compensate people that are providing liquidity for the gas fees required to even, like, set this shit up, right? So they're, like, it's just an expensive proposition overall. And effectively, the only time you would ever, like, get a better price on Sudo than you would on like a centralized exchange like OpenSea is like if there's some kind of like war, like price war going on where it's just like absolutely ripping on the centralized exchanges, and at that point it's just going to be a source of MEV, right? Like someone's going to come and be like, oh, I can buy it here cheaply, or I can sell it here for more expensive, right? Then I can sell it. Then I would have to pay to buy it on OpenSea, and like that'll just get like arbed away. But like it's the only reason you would execute there versus somewhere else. Now there's one more issue with Sudoswap that I would love to cover, and then I'd love to get your take. They're like trying to attract liquidity by not paying artists royalties.
They're not going to pay any artists royalties.
Zero.
I actually did not see that. Interesting.
Who likes that?
Wow. How can they do that? Yeah, I know. I mean, how can they do that if like some of the artist royalties are set on chain? Like, are they just not going to? How does that work?
Being on like royalties being set on chain, you're talking about something like Manifold, right? That's just like a reference.
Yeah.
Ideally, you're supposed to pay the Manifold fee, but like the actual ERC 721 contract doesn't have a notion of like being matched against an order or whatever. It just has ownership, right?
Okay, so it has to be done at the marketplace level.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it's basically Manifold just creates a way for every exchange
for marketplaces to be able to just like reference on-chain data. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I see. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so my big take here is just, I guess I'm curious what the future of Uniswap looks like in general, right? Like, you look at what they're doing with Genie, look at this partnership, look at in general, like, what they did with Curve last year, right? Like, people don't really think about this, but it's like once they lowered fees for stable swaps, right? Like, they took a ton of liquidity from Curve initially. So if you kind of just like look at that, paint that picture, look at what Curve is doing. We didn't mention this. Curve is doing with their stable coin, right? Like, there's a rumor they're going to propose something or launch something similar to Aave's stable coin, like a maker style stable coin. So like maybe Uniswap does that. at some point down the line. So the curious thing to me is just like what the future of Uniswap looks like. I think it's one of the more innovative companies in the whole space, in kind of the things that they're trying, the things that they're doing, right? Like they're very similar to FTX in a way, right? Where like FTX will try a bunch of this like crazy weird stuff that like some of it completely flops, like FTX NFTs or whatever, right? Like they were initially like driving people from the homepage directly to their NFT marketplace.
That's a really interesting strategy. Doing, like, I wonder if
literally
other
zero volume
exchanges could try that.
Yeah, I know. Maybe they should. But FTX NFT is now at zero volume, so. Who knows, right? But like the point being, like they've tried this stuff, like, and so I'm just curious, like what Uniswap looks like, because they're now expanding like very much as a traditional corporation into like these many different business lines. They're making acquisitions, like, they're such a unique company, like a true like Web3 like a Web3, like Andreessen Horowitz backed, like almost like Web2 VC style company.
Kind of reminds me of Salesforce, where right? It like started out as a very high quality set of tech products, and they're just acquiring, right?
Uniswap has a massive treasury.
Yeah, well, it was $3 billion at the peak.
In the billions.
Right? I don't know how much. I mean,
but we don't know what their treasury is held in, right?
But that's a good question. The future of Uniswap. I agree. I think the acquisitions are super smart, right? Because I think that the capacity for the protocol itself to like do different things, it's like pretty bad, right? Like cross-chain swaps. Like we saw like an announcement from Sushi earlier this week that they're going to partner with like Layer 0 or it might have been Stargate, I think, to like enable cross-chain swaps, which is just like not something that users are always going to get better fees, like substantially better, if they trade, if they do two separate transactions, the bridge and then the swap, right? And there's two reasons for that. One, like if you send a cross-chain swap order, like everyone gets that information well ahead of time. So if you're trading any substantial amount of money at all, you're like either you're gonna get like sandwich attacked, or like you're just gonna get like your transaction might not go through, right? If you're like, okay, like I'm gonna trade 1,500 USDC on Solana for 1 ETH on Ethereum, and like you have this cross-chain setup, like that order might not get done if like the price of ETH goes to 1,700, and while that shit's getting like confirmed, because you have to confirm like a certain number of blocks, blah 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 blah. I think cross-chain swaps just have no future. I also think cross-chain MEV has very little future for this reason, that like there's just not going to be a lot of volume. People don't want a multi-chain world, right? Like everyone wants a multi-chain world if they're a VC, right? Like this is like the most common narrative that you hear out of VCs is like, oh, it's not going to matter like what's in the back end, like the user is only ever going to just see the wallet front end. And like that's just like very like not true, because the second your fucking transaction doesn't go through, you kind of do care what's actually happening on the back end. The second you get like really screwed on fees and you're like, why am I paying 3.5% more for ETH to do it all cross chain versus I could just do it, I could just bridge through a centralized exchange, like make my trade there and pay 50 bips or less, right? Like it's just like I find it like super senseless, honestly. So cross chain swaps, to end my rant, that's not going to happen, right? Then you have like NFT liquidity. Like I'm glad they're trying it, right? I'm glad they're experimenting, but this just isn't like this isn't the way that like on-chain NFTs like order books can really scale. With NFTs, like you really have to look at them as a completely different asset class from fungible tokens, right? Like Uniswap works perfectly for fungible tokens. For NFTs, it's like really fitting square peg into a round hole. So just the nature of like having to pay like relatively high gas fees and the fact that like all the NFTs are natively available through a centralized exchange like OpenSea versus like on Uniswap, like it used to be like, you know, there still is a lot of tokens are not available on centralized exchanges, at least available to like people like us that are like US residents, right? Like, you know,
Right.
if you want to, sometimes you want to buy something, Uniswap is like by far the best price, right? Or the only price, the only place you can do it. On NFTs,
Yeah.
like you can always trade them through OpenSea because it just adheres to the ERC 721 contract standard. Yeah.
What I wonder is like maybe Uniswap becomes like the back end like execution engine for like any new NFT marketplace that wants to pop up, right? You know, like let's say I want to launch like a true, just a discovery platform for NFTs, right? Like something that's way more social focused, like a kind of like Instagram discover kind of thing. And you can just like float around in there. Like, I don't want to build out like an order book and like a matching engine and, you know, build out like the execution and stuff. And it's like maybe Uniswap has like an API they put out that lets you plug in there and then just have to worry with just the front end or something like that, you know? I don't know.
I think the plugin that's owned by Uniswap is Genie, right? It's not going to be a plugin that connects to on-chain order books where like you're paying $1 gazillion in gas fees and the spreads are gigantic just to like have that, right? Like if there are market participants in an NFT collection, like then they will naturally go to wherever like the transaction costs are lowest.
Yeah, no, I definitely hear you. I'm just trying to paint like the optimistic picture, like down the line, how they can try and integrate all this kind of stuff. And coming from the advantage that they have, which is just a ton of liquidity, and how can they marry these things? But you know what? These are concerns for them, not us. We're here to tell you what happened. Matt, you got anything else?
No, I think that's just about all that happened. I'm gonna go disappear into the darkness, as you can see.
Oh, enjoy the Parisian evening. I'm very jealous. Have a nice walk on the river for me. And we will be back early next week with another deep dive on Lens Protocol. If you don't know what that is, it's going to be a fascinating one. We're both very pumped. So we'll see you early next week. Have a good weekend, everybody. Till then, stay decent.
None of this was financial advice, legal advice, investment advice, or any other kind of advice. If you're looking for advice, you are definitely in the wrong place. Until next time, stay decent.